Welcome back, Wonders. It's Naidra. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting pretty bored of the Lightning Spear build. And so if you guys are anything like me at this point in the season, it's definitely time to try something new. Today, I'm going to show you guys what I've been working with, which is the Inferno Fireball build. It's not going to replace the meta that we currently have, but it is doing an insane amount of damage. We're in the billions and trillions. We're able to get through pretty much any pit levels up to level 100. I haven't taken it past 100 just yet. I've still got a little opportunity to make some changes to the build, but until that point, it has been a lot of fun to play. And did I forget to mention it's unlimited teleport and also unlimited Inferno? That's right, you heard it correct. So with that, today I'm going to take you guys through that, show you exactly what it looks like, and then we'll come back to town afterwards to see what's making the build work. Before we dive into it though, if you guys have not yet subscribed to the channel, please don't forget to do so below. Also, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out our merch store, that's going to be linked in the bio as well. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Alrighty, so we're just going to do a quick demo in a pit tier 80 here. We have used a build like this in the past. We did use this last season, and so the way that it's going to function is going to be relatively the same. We are going to be needing to use our defensives pretty much all of the time for the additional power boost we're getting from both ice armor and from our flame shield as well. We are going to be spamming fireball. Fireball is going to be extremely helpful, especially once we get our enemies below 25%. This will instantly execute them, making it a little bit faster to clear our room. And then finally, yes, we're going to be spamming our Inferno along with Firewall as well. Firewall is just going to give us that much more additional fire damage or burning damage. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a look and see how this is going to work. So the key thing here is going to be making sure that you are good at grouping your enemies. If you are, you can get these done really, really quick. In fact, I have finished a pit tier level 100 with this, and it just takes a little bit longer because I'm not very good at grouping enemies together. But if you're doing this any quicker than I am, or if you're better at grouping them than I am, you're going to be able to get through this really, really quickly. Now, as you can see, we are dealing billions and trillions of damage with this build, which is really, really nice. And in addition to that, we have unlimited Inferno. So we are capable of casting basically 4 or even maybe 5 Infernos all at the same time, which makes it really nice. We really don't have any issues with tankability. We don't take much damage with this build, if any at all, thanks to our armors that we have on at the same time. But really, really fun to play. And like I mentioned, can go quite a bit faster because we have our unlimited teleport. So now that you guys see how this works, let's go ahead and find another group here really quick before we go back to town and see what's making this work. Boom. So now that you guys see how this works, let's go ahead and go back to town and take a look at our equipment and everything else. Alrighty, so starting off with our equipment, first up, we've got our weapon, and yes, we are going to be using a two-handed staff with this. Now, for the stats, we want to have intelligence, maximum life, and damage over time. And then if you can get one with a GA, the most important one here is going to be damage over time. We then will be tempering on pyromancy attack speed. And then we've also got chance for Inferno to deal double damage. When you masterwork this, we want to try to put 2 points into chance for Inferno to deal double damage, and then the other point should actually go into damage over time. I don't have very good luck with my masterworking. I think you guys have heard me say this before, and I'm sure you saw it in the comments from the last video. It is just refusing to give me exactly what I want, but this is close enough for now. But ultimately, we do want to put that other masterwork point into damage over time. Now, looking at the aspect, we are using the conflagration aspect with this. Next up, we've got our boots. For our boots, we are going to be using Flicker Step. Now, I did masterwork this to have damage reduction from close enemies, which was really helpful with our previous build that was slightly more squishy than this one is. However, for this one, we actually want to go with ultimate damage because we are using ultimate damage as our primary damage dealing move. That is going to help us out quite a bit. And then also, if you can get a GA on ultimate damage, that really is going to bring this that much further than where we're currently at right now. And like I mentioned, at this point, we're able to do pit level 100. It does take a little bit of time, especially when we get to the boss, to be able to do it, but it is capable of doing it at this point. And so ideally we want a GA on ultimate damage, and we also want to masterwork all 3 points into ultimate damage as well. For our pants, we are using Tibalt's. This is just too good for us not to use, especially because we are using Flame Shield, so that is going to be making us unstoppable, giving us an extra 20% times damage, which is really, really helpful. Now, when looking at masterworking, we want to try to throw all 3 points into damage reduction while unstoppable. Like I mentioned, this build is extremely tanky and does not have any problems with taking damage. I have not died a single time while I've been using this build at all. And then for our gems, we are going to be using Topaz. That is going to give us intelligence. So that one is kind of a no-brainer with this specific character. Next up, we've got our gloves. First off, we are using the Engulfing Flames aspect. And then we do need something that's got intelligence, maximum life, and damage over time, where our GAs should primarily go on intelligence and damage over time being the most important one. Now, when looking at tempering this, we are going to be tempering on crowd control duration, and we're also going to throw on pyromancy attack speed, where our masterworking is going to go into damage over time specifically. Next up, for our chest armor, the preferred chest armor for this guy is going to be Shroud of False Death. The +1 to all passives is really helpful. And then in addition to that, getting 312 to all stats or even potentially more, since we should be masterworking all 3 into all stats, is going to be really helpful. This is not required. If you don't have this, that is absolutely fine. This build will work with a different piece of armor. If you have a regular chest armor, you would probably want to throw on the Orange Herald on here. If not, I also was using the Raiment of the Infinite with this, and it was working really well. So either way will be fine, but if you have Shroud of False Death, that's going to be the one we want to throw on here. Looking at our runes, we're going to be putting on Zan and Cax. Next up, we've got our helmet. Now, this is another mythic unique that we are using with this build, so that makes 2. But again, similar to the Shroud of False Death, this is not going to be required. You can still make this build work without having the Shaco on here. However, if you have something else, you would probably want to do the Godslayer crown or something that's got a high amount of cooldown reduction. And so yes, this is something that is replaceable with something else if you'd like to. However, if you do replace it, you need to have something that's got good cooldown reduction with the GA on cooldown reduction, and also make sure you're masterworking all 3 points into cooldown reduction as well. If you have Shaco, as you can see, we want to try to get all 3 of those points into cooldown reduction still. This does help us with being able to teleport really quickly all of the time, and it makes it so we pretty much don't have a cooldown at all on our Inferno, whereas you noticed in the demo, we're able to cast Inferno at least 3 or 4 times with all of them being out at the same time, which looks really cool and also is really effective as well. For our runes for this guy, we're going to be using Sir and Vex, just too helpful not to have those on. Next up, we've got our amulet. For our amulet, we are using the Stormswell aspect. Now, for this guy, we do want to make sure that we get something that's got intelligence on it, and we also want to have glass cannon. Attack speed is really helpful. If you can get something that's got endless pyre on here, that would be great as well. If you do not have a Shaco, you do want to make sure that you've got cooldown reduction on this piece of equipment as well. That is what's going to allow you to still have that unlimited teleport, while you still can also use Inferno as frequently as possible. So no Shaco, you need cooldown. If you have a Shaco, then you don't need to worry about this on this item. And then when we look at tempering, we're going to be tempering on evade cooldown reduction. I was not able to get that one on here, but evade cooldown reduction would be the most helpful. And then we're also going to be putting on Inferno cooldown reduction. If you have a Shaco, you would want to then masterwork all 3 points into Glass Cannon, because we don't need that additional Inferno cooldown reduction. We already have enough, so you don't necessarily need to put it on there. We want to try to put all 3 of those points into Glass Cannon, but like I mentioned, if you don't have a Shaco, it is really important that we're getting that Inferno cooldown reduction on here as well. For the gem, we are using a skull for this. Now, between our Paragon board, our skill tree, our gems, and everything else, our armor eventually ends up at 1111, but without having an incense on, we still get to about 949 at this point, so you will need to have an incense to be able to fully max out your armor. And then when we look at our resistances, those are also going to be maxed out thanks to our incense and also our equipment as well. If you don't have any incense on, the resistances should still be at 72%, at least for fire and lightning. Your cold, poison, and shadow might be in the 60s somewhere, but having those on maxes us out and brings us exactly where we need to be. Next up, for our second ring, we are using the Vehement Brawlers aspect with this guy. We want to have intelligence, attack speed, and damage over time on here as well, where we're then going to be tempering on pyromancy attack speed, and then we've also got Inferno cooldown reduction on here as well. Now for this guy, we want to throw all 3 masterworking points into damage over time. Again, if you don't have a Shaco, then we would want to focus more on the cooldown with pretty much every piece of equipment that we have. But if we have Shaco, because right now we're getting 49% cooldown reduction from this, it is not going to be necessary to add even more on here. And then for our gem, for this guy, we're also using a skull as well. We needed to have these 2 on here so that we can reach the armor cap when our instances are on. And then lastly, for our final piece of equipment, we've got our Tall Rasha Spring, which is absolutely necessary with pretty much every build that's out there for Sorceress right now. Now for this one, we want to try to get one that's got a GA on cooldown reduction. And then similarly, we want to try to throw all 3 points of our masterworking into cooldown reduction as well. And then finally, for the gem for this guy, we are going to be using a diamond, and that is what also brings us up to that cap and maxes us out with both our armor and also our resistances. Taking a look at our boss powers, for our primary boss power, we are using Sinrat's Flames. We do need our enemies to be burning as much as possible. The more burning damage we have and damage over time we have, the more damage we're going to deal altogether. For our modifiers, for the first one, we are going to be using Andario's Flaming Skull. Secondly, we've got Kerma's Sparks. And then lastly, we're going to be throwing on Harbinger of Hatred's Volley for our final boss power. And then taking a look at our skill tree, for our basic skills, we're just going to throw 2 points into any of the basic skills just so that we can move on to our core skills. Moving on down, we've got 1 point into Incinerate, taking it up to Enhanced Incinerate, and then finishing it up with Destructive Incinerate. We then will also be taking Fireball for 1 point, taking it up to Enhanced Fireball, and finishing this one up with Greater Fireball. Now, Fireball does tremendously help us out with this build, but we don't necessarily need to max out the ranks on Fireball. We just need to be able to activate it frequently, so that way, A, our cooldowns are going down faster, and then B, in addition to that, we are executing our enemies once they fall below that 25% life. So it is really helpful to have, but we're not going to waste all of our points into this. We just need to put down 1. Moving down to our defensive skills, for the first time, we are not actually taking Flame Shield, but we are using Flame Shield. And thanks to Shaco, we are able to do that. We then will be taking 1 point into Teleport, taking it up to Enhanced Teleport, and then finishing it up with Mystical Teleport. We also will be taking 3 points into Glass Cannon. We've got 1 point into Ice Armor, taking it down to Enhanced Ice Armor, and then finally finishing it up with Mystical Ice Armor. And then for this build, we are also going to be using Frost Nova. So we're going to take regular Frost Nova, taking it down to Enhanced Frost Nova, and then finishing that up with Mystical Frost Nova. Making our enemies vulnerable is helpful, but more specifically, we're also getting an additional 15% times additional damage by taking this. So it is really, really helpful to have. And when you pair this up with Hoarfrost, we are going to be dealing a significant amount more damage by having this. So it is really helpful to have. And then finally, we are also going to be taking 1 point into Energy Focus and 1 point into Dampen Layer. Now, if you don't have a Shaco and you don't have the free point for your Flame Shield, you can take these points off and put 1 into Flame Shield. And then you could also put the second one into Enhanced Flame Shield if you'd like. That's only if you don't have the Shaco. If you do have it, you won't need that. It is more helpful to put up our defensives here with Dampen Layer and also Energy Focus. Then moving on to our conjuration skills, we are going to be taking 1 point into Align the Elements, and we've got 3 points into Protection. And then we also will be taking 3 points into Mana Shield. And then we'll jump on down to our Mastery skills, where as usual, we are going to be putting 3 points into Inner Flames. We then will take 1 point into Firewall, taking it down to Enhanced Firewall, and finishing it up with Wizard's Firewall. For our ultimates, we are going to be putting 3 points into Permafrost. We've got 3 points into Icy Touch. And we've also got 3 points into Hoarfrost. And then moving on down to the star of the show, we are going to be taking Inferno. We've got 5 points into this, taking it up to Prime Inferno, and finishing it up with Supreme Inferno. We then will also be taking 3 points into Endless Pyre, 3 points into Warmth, and 3 points into Soulfire. We then will take 1 point into Coursing Currents, and 3 points into Convulsions. We've also got 3 points into Elemental Synergies with this build. And lastly, we've got 3 points into Evocation. And finishing up this great build, for once we are not going to be using Enlightenment. This build is pairing up with Combustion, which is really helpful. And then before we jump over to our Paragon board for our enchantments, we are going to be taking Incinerate enchantment, and of course, we're going to be taking the Teleport enchantment as well. Now, I will say, if you're using this build outside of the pit, and if you're doing just regular Outer World content, or if you're doing things like Hell Tides or even the Hordes, you do want to swap out the Incinerate enchantment for the Fireball enchantment. We don't quite need that much power doing things in the Outer World or in any of those other places that we mentioned. It is going to make it a little faster to use Fireball, where enemies will explode for 65% of Fireball's damage once they die, and that's just going to help be able to clear out the room a little bit faster. But if you're doing things like pit pushing, definitely need to have Incinerate enchantment on here. And next up, we've got our Paragon board. For our Paragon board, first board, we'll be taking the Pyromaniac glyph. And then moving on to our second board, we will be taking the Burning Instinct board. And this one we're going to be pairing up with our Elementalist glyph. And then for our third board, we're going to go ahead and make our way on over to the right, where we're going to be taking on the Enchantment Master board. In this one, we're going to be pairing up with the Torch glyph. Now, for this guy, we're only going to be taking just enough points or just enough willpower so that we're able to activate this glyph. We'll then move on over to the fourth and the fifth board. Once we've got all of our glyphs activated, then we'll circle back to this and we'll grab the additional willpower so we can increase the amount of burning damage that we're dealing. But initially, and especially if you're not at the level that I am, which at this point is at 263, you want to try to get all 5 of your boards first, and then we'll go back and we'll max out on all of the other ones once that's already done. Taking a look at our fourth board, we're going to make our way on down, and this is going to be the Fundamental Release board. And this guy, we're going to be pairing up with our Tactician glyph. And then for our fifth and final board on the top left-hand side, we're going to be taking the Ceaseless Conduit board, and this we're going to be pairing up with the Flame Feeder glyph. And then jumping over to our Mercenary, for our Mercenary, we are going to be taking Subo. He's going to be using a Molotov, taking it down to Scorched Earth. Then we've got Snipe, finishing it up with Incendiary Bolt. And then for our reinforcement, we are going to be taking Aldkin. Aldkin is going to be using Field of Languish, and this is going to be paired up with Fireball. And that is all I have for you guys for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Until next time, Wanderers.